So in the last episode, we discussed the problem with the RPG genre as a whole. Over the next few episodes, I want to talk about the greatest strength of each of the five main subgenres, and where they've started to go wrong in recent years. See, while I do love RPGs, I can't deny that they have problems that have been getting worse over the years, as the genres have started to lose their identity in favor of chasing as big an audience as they can, when they are just going down completely the wrong path altogether. So, we'll be going through the subgenres in the order I listed them in the last video. So we'll be starting with Western RPGs. Western RPGs are really the only subgenre to, as a whole, focus on the whole role-playing part of role-playing games. Sure, other subgenres might dip their toes into it for a specific game or even a specific series, but as a whole they don't do it as often or as well. Because of this, role-playing became a huge part of the Western RPG identity, and it's what makes the best games of this subgenre so strong. However, role-playing isn't just the ability to make decisions for your character. Hiccups, Jesus. Making decisions is a part of that, sure, but without impact, those decisions are a shallow thing. Impact is what makes role-playing in a Western RPG matter. The knowledge that each decision matters in some way. The knowledge that if you side with one faction, the rival faction will send forces to take you out. The knowledge that if you can decide the future of a town or even a kingdom with the choices you make. The knowledge that there's many different ways to solve a quest depending on the kind of character you're playing as. However, without impact, all of the choices and character builds in the world feel token and shallow. This is one of the reasons I tend to criticize the writing in Bethesda RPGs, especially newer ones, as heavily as I do. It doesn't matter what you do with your character, it has very little impact on the world as a whole. One example that always stuck out in my mind was how you joined the Thieves Guild in Skyrim. It doesn't matter what your character does or how you built them or even how they're dressed, you will be approached and given the opportunity. In my case, I built a melee-focused character who favored heavy armor. When I was given the opportunity to join the Thieves Guild, I was wearing gold-plated dwarven armor and had just killed a dragon that had flown into the city by beating it down with my broadsword and breathing fire at it. How and why this guy thought I'd be the perfect candidate to join the Thieves Guild is beyond me. The problem was, nothing I did mattered. The world wasn't changed in any way by what I did. I could be the most heroic person that ever heroed, and I'd still be invited to join the Thieves Guild or the Assassins Guild with no never mind. Hell, if I joined the Thieves Guild or the Assassins Guild, I could still walk into the home of a king I just robbed or killed someone in, as long as I paid the fines, of course, and no one would give a shit. Skyrim had nothing I could do had any impact. It was all surface fluff to fulfill the whole role-playing obligation. Skyrim had the most egregious example, but the rest of their games had the same problem. The role-playing elements felt token and shallow. Maybe this changes toward the end of those games, but that doesn't really matter much when I've lost all interest in those games pretty early on, due to really noticing and feeling this lack of impact. Now, I'm sure someone is going to bring up Fallout New Vegas. They would be right to, as New Vegas has all the role-playing mechanics I could ask for. Factions react to what you do, and not just in conversation, which is a rare and wonderful thing, trust me. You have the power to decide the fate of almost every form of civilization you come across. Some quests can't even be accessed if you have the wrong build, much less completed. New Vegas is honestly a masterclass in making a great Western RPG. I've had it for less than a month at the time that this video is going up, and I've sunk 25 hours into the game, probably a little more then. However, it's also not developed by Bethesda, they only published the game. New Vegas was actually developed by Obsidian, the guys behind Knights of the Old Republic 2, who were some of the best in the business when it comes to making Western RPGs. Also, yes, I know I brought up New Vegas in my rant about Bethesda RPGs 2 videos ago. First, the PS3 port of that game is terrible. The PC version I have is much more stable. Second, at the time I made the mistake of thinking it was developed by Bethesda. I know better now, it wasn't. It was made by Obsidian, as I said earlier, so sorry. However, lest you think New Vegas is the only great example of a Western RPG, the Knights of the Old Republic and Dragon Age games are built entirely around impact. Revenant in the Exile and Knights of the Old Republic 1 and 2 can push entire planets into a new age of prosperity and enlightenment, or send them careening back into tyranny and barbarism with their actions. The Warden and the Inquisitor in Dragon Age both decide, or in Dragon Age Origins and Dragon Age Inquisition, both decide the fate of several nations with their actions and can make the world a better, freer place for everyone, from elf to dwarf to mage, or they can be the most ruthless tyrants in the land, putting mages in even worse prisons than the Circles. In Dragon Age 2, which is very small in terms of scale, taking place in and around one city, it actually allows for the most intimate displays of impact in the entire genre, or some of them at least. Even the smallest decisions, like who you have in your party on certain missions, can have long-term ramifications due to this tighter focus. By now, you probably get the point I'm trying to make, though. Western RPGs are at their best when they put their focus on making the role-playing part of the game as weighty and as impactful as it can be. When that's taken away, the whole game feels much more bland and generic. When nothing the player does really changes the world, when every action you can take has no effect, when nothing really matters, that's when a Western RPG starts to fall apart. It no longer has the core that makes the genre special, that sets it apart from the rest. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that Knights of the Old Republic or Dragon Age or New Vegas are perfect, or that games like Skyrim or Fallout 3 have no redeeming qualities at all. Far from it, in fact. Every game has its own positives and negatives, and its own reasons people will like it. But as far as role-playing in a game goes, well, BioWare and Obsidian are really good at making solid, impactful role-playing games, while Bethesda seems to feel that all they have to do is have enough stuff for the player to do that they don't really think about how little impact any of it has. And before someone brings up Mass Effect, I've only played Mass Effect 3, and jumping into the middle of that series is difficult, since it's all connected, all linearly connected. I had no idea what the hell was going on or who any of these people were, so I didn't make it very far into it. And yes, I know Andromeda looks like ass. But BioWare games, unfortunately, always look a little, I mean, their best-looking game overall is Dragon Age 2, so, yeah. Okay, so how do we encourage Western RPGs with good role-playing games while discouraging Western RPGs that don't even bother? Well, believe it or not, that's actually fairly easy. When a Western RPG comes out with great role-playing mechanics, we need to be on that like we won't get a second chance. If Dragon Age 4 or The Outer Worlds have solid, impactful role-playing, pick them up and get the word out. Hell, most of my audience are some form of content creator or another, after all, and we're nothing if not vocal about the things that we love. On the flip side, when someone puts out some poorly written hack job with only the most token elements of role-playing mechanics, don't let them get away with it. Take them to task and hold them responsible for their shoddy product. And for fuck's sake, stop buying Skyrim. You and I both know you already own 2 different ports of that game, and you're sending entirely the wrong message to the game industry. In the end, though, the best way to encourage good Western RPGs is to play good Western RPGs. Find the games in the genre that you love and let people know it. Share the best of the genre with people, and I think the change will happen sooner than later. Oh, and one last bit of advice. When playing New Vegas, don't kill Volpes and Sulta at Nipton unless you've got really good guns. Legionnaire assassins will hound you all over the Mojave, and they are a right pain in the ass to kill throughout the early and mid parts of the game. This has been For Fun and Profit, and I will see you all in the next video. Thank you, and good night, folks.